Jock, it is great to have you here again at our training center to bring your personal and unique perspective on driver coaching.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to come here to Wave Italy and absolutely to talk about what is my passion, teaching racing drivers to drive fast.
In your role, you've seen many training environments. How do you think Wave Italy's collaboration with Scuderia Ferrari Driver Academy can impact drivers' preparation?
I think there's a huge amount we haven't yet understood about how to develop driver talent. That is the challenge, to bring a new level of preparation to our young drivers. And we're always seeking the next technology, the next capability of delivering more, delivering it faster, preparing to a better level. And we firmly believe that this is the way to do it, or this is an important component to preparing young brains, young minds, young kids, because we're talking 12, 13 years old now, preparing them for what is a very high pressure environment where they have to deliver their talent. They're all talented. The drivers that we're dealing with have an innate talent for driving go-karts fast, driving racing cars fast, but there's much more to it, to winning, to getting to the F1 level, and that is our objective, to find drivers who can drive a Ferrari F1 car. To getting to that next level, there's much more to it than just turning the steering wheel and pushing the pedals, and preparing for them for that mental pressure, that mental challenge, how to negotiate their career over the next 3 or 4 years. Actually, a lot of it comes down to how we prepare them in simulators. In this new technology, we go out and drive laps round and round a circuit all day, every day. That's expensive and relatively inefficient. This mode of simulator environment, simulator immersion, drivers having the opportunity to look at data in very fine detail, because of course a simulator offers you all the data you need. That is a new technology. Okay, it's probably 10 years old now, 15 years old now, but in terms of racing cars, that's new technology. And we're still breaking ground. We're still finding more and more development. And as such, we want to enhance that. We want to embrace that. We want to make the most of it. We want to pioneer it. We want to help Wave Italy to develop. We want to take the opportunity to have the drivers, 5, 6, 7 young drivers over the course of a year. That gives us some statistics on whether this works generically, or whether this works just for one driver or just for one particular type of driver. All of this is really important exposure for us as an academy, to understand better how to prepare. So we're learning this. We're not experts. We're not saying we know this is the way to go. We're learning as you are learning, as Wave are learning, as the drivers are learning. We're developing these techniques, and that means you need a collaboration. You need the drivers to be in the loop. The drivers need to give us feedback. Is this helping? Is this not helping? Is this creating confusion? Is this conflicting with what they're learning on track? Does this not resonate with what's going on in the real car? They need to give us that feedback. We need to then develop with Wave a better simulator, for want of a better word, because we know that where this technology is going to be in 5 years' time is going to be in a much better place than it is now.
Can you describe how the technical support provided by Wave Italy integrates into SFDA overall training course?
The integration with our overall program is vital, very much because with the young developing drivers, we really can't afford to have conflict. We can't afford to have mixed messaging. So they're learning things on track, and then they're going to a simulator environment and learning something different, or not feeling like that's real, or because ultimately it's not real. A simulator is not real, but of course the very target of simulation. The objective is to make it as real an experience as possible. But the drivers have to recognize that it is an environment where their brain is effectively being fooled, and they give us vital feedback on how that technology is making them feel like this is real or not real. That synergy with the simulator, with the real track, drivers of this era, and I say this era, I mean the kids who are coming through now, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, they have that in their background. They've had mobile phones and they've had video games all of their lives. They're used to this interaction. So actually they're a new resource for us, and they're part of that loop. And the technology that Wave Italy are developing along with their driver pool, because of course Wave Italy have a vast number of drivers, many more than we have in SFDA, and that statistic helps us to develop. We're tapping into some of that experience from Wave. Wave are also tapping into our experience in the real world, so to speak, and between the three of us, bringing the driver into the loop. I think we have a lot to offer over the next couple of years in understanding better how this technology develops drivers. What we have seen so far is very encouraging.
In your experience, what specific skills should be monitored and which ones should be developed during the training process?
The specific skills we're looking to develop in this environment, in the simulator environment, are not specifically the how much am I turning the steering wheel, when do I need to brake for this corner, how much speed am I carrying in here. It's more a holistic view of how to develop as a racing driver. When you're 12, 13 years old, you just focus on driving the next lap as fast as you can. When you're developing towards an F2 driver, an F1 driver, where you become an integral part of developing the car, to steering the aerodynamic development of an F1 team, helping enhance the mechanical grip of a new suspension system, of a new tyre development, that requires a process of what we call preparation, execution, review. Preparation, execution, review. That loop is a loop that racing drivers have to learn how to go through. In doing so, they need to get as much information as they can about how they're interacting with the physics of a racing car. Ultimately, a racing car is a very high technology piece of equipment. The physics is what makes a racing car go fast. It has a limitation, and those limitations are within the physics of a car. The good drivers are the drivers who are able to drive that car absolutely to the limits everywhere, but they can't drive beyond that limit. So understanding where that limit is, understanding what is the limitation that's stopping them from carrying more speed into turn 8 in Bahrain, is part of their development as a racing driver. So they need to understand, okay, what's my impact on the tyre temperature in turn 7? Why is it that my front left tyre is far too hot by the time I get to turn 8 and I have too much understeer? A simulator environment gives them that opportunity to look at the data in detail. To gather that on a real car is expensive, it's inefficient, and actually the data isn't super reliable. We can't actually measure what's happening at the contact patch on a real car. Now, in a simulator environment, if the fidelity of the models is really good, if the coherence is really good, that gives the driver a whole lot of information immediately. They can look at it on a screen as they're driving almost. They can certainly look at it 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 1 minute later, and they can relate, okay, I can see exactly what I was doing now. I can see why the left front tyre is now getting really hot, and I can see why I have understeer in the next corner. That's building them a knowledge base that will allow them to become an integral part of a racing team. And that's the difference between a fast karting driver and an F1 driver, is the ability to drive fast, the ability to put a qualifying lap together, but much more than that is the ability to be part of a technological team, of a team that can develop a car in the right direction, can identify what the limitations are, which direction we need to be going in, because with all the technology in the world, we can't do that without the driver in the loop. We can't do that without the human who's actually got his hands on the steering wheel. And they need to understand where that role starts and where it stops, and understanding that in this environment is the perfect environment to really get that ingrained in them at this very early age.
Looking at the past year, can you share some concrete examples of how the training translated into on-track performance or competitive results?
Simple answer is no, because as I said, what we're trying to develop is a holistic view, is a modus operandi almost of a racing driver. So if I look at any of the things that we've done in the last year, I could cherry pick. Maya came to this simulator before she went to Hungary, and she learnt the track well, she performed well in Hungary. I couldn't put my hand on my heart and say that was just down to the preparation she did in the simulator, because we take a very big overview of preparation. What I can say is that over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, we've understood that the process of developing young talent, the process of developing young racing drivers is working better since we've been following this path, since we've been investing in simulator work, investing our time and effort in the fidelity and the coherence of simulator. When you ask me for a concrete example, I could give you the best example, which is not directly wave related. This is Ollie Bearman. When Fred said to me in Saudi Arabia, Carlos can't drive, I'm going to call Ollie, is Ollie ready for this? I said, yes, Ollie's ready for this, because we believe in our process, and this is now part of our process. We're confident that we understand how to develop drivers and bring them to a point where they are ready to drive a Formula One car, because that is our objective as SFDA. I'm confident that this process is now as good as we can be with the technology we have at the moment to do that job. Is it good enough? It's not as good as it's going to be in a year's time. It's not as good as it's going to be in 2 years' time. But what we see on track with our drivers, with Rafa Kamara, with Maya, winning races, leading championships, is the result of how we are generally developing our drivers, and Wave Italy is an important part of that.
Thank you very much for your time again, Jock, and for sharing your thoughts.